Go to a video question. This one's from Tony Thomas in Melbourne.
David, you've urged at least twice that legal ways should be found to jail politicians for denying what you call the science of climate change. David, do you still hold that view?
You bet. I think there is a category called willful blindness. Our problem is we have no means of holding our so-called leaders, people we elect to political office to lead us into the future. We have no way to keep them accountable except booting them out of office. But the reverberations of what they do or do not do today are rippling far beyond the coming years. There'll be generational impacts. Now, if you have people who stand up to take positions of leadership and they deliberately suppress or ignore information vital to making an informed decision, I think that's willful blindness. And willful blindness, I understand, is a legal entity that you can sue people for.
But are you seriously suggesting that politicians should be tried and possibly even jailed for exercising free speech?
Well, I throw it out as something that ought to be brought up. I haven't really thought it through to the end. But I certainly, personally, I think that there is a great deal of willful blindness and it ought to be pointed out in some way.
Well,
yes.
you did think it through enough to say this in your speech over the weekend, and visiting academics.
Were you there?
Visiting academics generally stay out of local politics. But you described Tony Abbott's scrapping of the carbon tax and sacking of Tim Flannery as criminal negligence. I mean,
I agree.
Did you go too far?
No, I don't think so.
How can you elevate it to criminal? When
I believe what's going on now is criminal, our activity, because it's a crime against future generations. And there ought to be a legal position of intergenerational crime. And I think there's criminal negligence.
Okay. The gentleman up the back there has his hand up. So there's a gentleman up the back there has his hand up. We'll get the microphone to you, sir. Go ahead.
With willful blindness, it's an impossibility for ice to melt and the surrounding water to rise. Fort Denison has shown no rise in sea level in 168 years. And I've just come back from Perisher Valley. It snowed Friday and it snowed yesterday, and it's springtime. I'm just disappointed that the truth isn't coming out. The suicide level in Australia
come on now.
is
You're giving us anecdotal
2,300 and not going down.
Okay,
a lot of people
we'll take
have
the,
anxiety.
I'll just interrupt you there. We'll take the first few points and let David Suzuki respond to that.
Well, you know, we have this all the time in Canada. We get a snowfall in the winter in Canada, and it goes down to 20 below, and everybody says, "See, Suzuki, you guys are full of crap. You know, here it's cold. What's this global warming stuff?" You can't use that kind of anecdote as if it proves anything. I mean, I just don't think it's relevant to the science that you're involved in.
All right, let's go back
you
to
disagree?
Let's go back to one of our scientists first. We'll hear from both of them actually, but Stuart Franks.
In an opinion piece last week, you wrote that the Great Barrier Reef was threatened by the increasing frequency of cyclones. Everyone watching and listening can go onto the Bureau of Meteorology's website and see that there's no increase. In fact, there's been a decline over the last 40 years and no increase in the severity. Are you not, by exaggerating or even just getting it wrong, are you not actually vulnerable of actually undermining your very own aim in that, you know, the Great Barrier Reef does have environmental threats, but cyclones ain't one of them?
All right, that was one, I have to admit that was suggested to me by an Australian, and it is true. I mean, it may be a mistake. I don't know.
I always admire a man that can say he made a mistake, so I thank you for that.
Let's we go back to the other side of our science argument. I mean, what about this frequency of extreme weather, and particularly cyclones issue? Because it's been challenged in the media, and then on the other hand, we hear the IPCC's report will say there will be more extreme weather events.
Yeah, well, I would agree with Stuart that the cyclones are not threatening the reef, but the warming temperatures are, and the reducing pH of the world's oceans is. As for cyclone frequency, it's really hard to tell from observations whether cyclones are becoming more frequent or more intense or not. In the North Atlantic, it looks like they are. But the physics tells you that they're going to get stronger sooner or later in a warmer climate. I think we're pretty confident of that.
All right, let's go to our next question.